Hi, everybody. Good evening, and I hope very healthy evening to all of you. My name is Yair Maimon, and I've been practicing Chinese medicine for over 30 years. And I'm very lucky because I've been involved both as a practitioner all these years, practicing also in private practice, but also in the health system and in hospitals. I've been teaching all around the world. I live in Israel, but I'm used to frequently travel, not now a bit less lately. And also I've been researching, so I was very fortunate to have my own research center in several hospitals, and the last one also a laboratory center. And one of the areas that I've been deeply researching and had interest in was the immune system. Actually, my main interest is very extreme. One is the Shen and the relationship of the body to the Shen, and the other one is the body, cancer, and immunity. And as far as immunity, I've been researching especially herbal medicine and different herbal combinations and their effect on the immune system. And as we know, we are now in a very challenging time. And the key in this challenging time is actually the immune system and the immune response and immunity overall. And in this lecture, I would like to touch on this topic more from a Chinese point of view, but also from a research, and also one of my research that has been just accepted for publication 2 days ago, and have a better understanding on how Chinese medicine affects immunity and how Chinese medicine can be a key player, actually both in strengthening immunity and helping it to deal with pathogens, and really any pathogens, but also viruses and bacteria. And this also we are seeing in research, in our clinical experience. And I think it's a good opportunity to go deeper and look at the current situation we are facing from a Chinese medical point of view and deepen our Chinese medical understanding. So I would like to start with, first of all, with some relevance to our times, to try to take it from, again, as I said, a different angle. You know, there's many angles that have been all the time on the news that everybody we're talking about. But if you look at it from Chinese medical point of view, we are looking at a struggle between two forces. And this is the best way to start to address the situation and address the immunity and immune response. We are looking traditionally at Zheng Qi, which is the upright Qi, which is a summary of all the body's ability to keep its vitality, and Xie Qi, or bad Qi, which is pathogens that are trying to invade the body. So constantly in life, we have this struggle between these two forces. And this struggle is quite interesting because on both sides we have Qi. So we have the same phenomena that we are addressing, but from a different point of view. And Chinese medicine doesn't just look at the body, it looks at the universe, it looks at how things are functioning. So Qi can be of different natures. And here we look at the body's Qi, which is the Zhang Qi, and the Xia, the bad Qi, which is trying to invade the body and take over. And this is like a key aspect, this struggle. And I would like to put it in a chart, which again takes it a bit deeper into the conflicts we are facing now. So on one hand, we have Zhang Qi. And Zhang Qi also can represent the immune system, but also something which is deeper, the vitality. In a Western, from a Western point of view, we'll talk also about the immune response, the antibodies that the body produces. So this is our immunity. And then we have the pathogens. And as we know, we have different types of pathogens. The pathogens can be damp, can be heat, can be cold. And by the way, the same, for example, virus can manifest differently in different individuals according to their pre-existing condition. And for us as a clinician, it's very important because if we help to clear the pre-existing condition, let's say damp, we know fat people or people with diabetes will have a much stronger response to a viral infection, especially the current one. So, or if there is too much heat, again, because this virus is very hot, the heat will even go faster. But I think if there is something common, it's the toxic part, if we look at all this type of invasions. And then if we look at the Zheng Qi, the immune Qi, and if we look at the body, we have three options. I'm putting it as a large category, but obviously in the clinic, it helps us to guide an individual case, which can be a mixture or can be not always so straightforward. So we have either a good Zheng Qi, good immunity, slightly weak immunity, or somebody with a weak immune system. By the way, since I'm treating a lot of cancer patients and I specialize in treatment of cancer, we see a lot of patients with weak immunity, not just due to their disease, but also due to the medicines that they are taking. Also, people with autoimmune disease will take chemotherapy or other intervention, Western intervention, that will weaken their immunity. Even that initially they are not with weak immunity, they are now in a state of weak immunity and weak Zheng Qi. And then we have a pathogen. In this respect, the pathogen is strong. And that's what we see. If the immune system is good and the pathogen is strong, there can be total healthy response. So people can stay healthy even though the pathogen is strong. If the pathogen is slightly weak and the Qi is strong, the pathogen is strong, then we'll get a mild disease. Everything soon will be translated to acupuncture points into clinical usage. The main problem we have that when the Zheng Qi, the immune is weak and the pathogen is strong, then we get a very fast, serious disease. Fast means also that there is the nature of toxins and wind and heat or damp in it. So this is the condition which is actually in the hub of the problem we are facing now. And now if we look at clinical approach, then when the immune system is good, you can mildly tonify it. Take some herbs. I'll talk later about mild herbs that you can take, but you actually don't need to do anything. I have hundreds of people calling me, say, if your immune system is good, probably you don't need to do much. You can do something. One of the problems is psychological problems. So a lot of times, when you take something, you also feel psychologically better. Or if you have a purposefully designed prescription, which is good for you to keep your health, definitely this is one of the things I'll advocate. So in this respect, you tonify the immune system, or that's the strategy, and mildly. In the second stage, when the immune system is weak and the pathogen is strong, actually what you need to do is to take the heat out, is you need to focus on the pathogens. Because when you eliminate or reduce the toxicity or the heat or the damp of the pathogen, then the body's immunity can pick up and can give a good fight. And then eventually you go out of it, you don't deteriorate into a serious condition. And obviously the most complicated situation is the worst and the most difficult is the third case, where the immunity is weak. And then you need to tonify or strengthen the immunity, and in the same time to reduce the pathogens. We are kind of doing a dual approach or a dual strategy approach, which is very possible from Chinese medical point of view, but it will require a more complex or more complicated approach, or complex approach also as far as herbs, as far as the acupuncture points that we choose. And let me take it to a clinical situation. And I'm looking at the curve, but from a different point of view. A curve has this area where there is a place for prevention. Because, I'll just go back to this. When there is a possibility of prevention. Because here, if the immune system will be good, in this area, probably disease will not develop or will develop very mildly. The person will not feel it. So there'll be some antibodies build up, there'll be some immune response, but there'll be no disease. The second is when there is a full-blown disease. And then again, we are treating very differently. And the third situation is actually when there is a cure from the disease, when somebody is over the acute phase, the active phase, and is in a curative and getting back to norm situation. And in these three situations, we will use different points, and I'll just illustrate it with some points, like from the lung, Dumai, or Some of you may and use it as a GV or from the stomach or large intestine meridians. So if we look at the lung meridian, for prevention, I've put lung 9. The Yuan source points of the lung, the earth points to tonify the Yuan Qi. Yuan Qi is closely linked to Wei Qi. Actually, the way Wei Qi is built is all the time with the interaction of pre-heaven and post-heaven Qi, and we'll touch on it a bit later, or I will go deeper in other situations. And from the Dumai, I'll take Du 4, the Ming Meng, again to tonify the Yuan Qi. And stomach 42, the Yuan point of the stomach, which also will have a strong effect on both tonifying the stomach, but also enhancing the body fluids and alleviating a tendency for dampness, etc. So all of them will be kind of tonifying the Yuan Qi, and through this, the Wei Qi, and keeping the norm, keeping the Zhang Qi. And large intestine 4, again, the Yuan Qi of the large intestine. When there is a disease phase and there is a lot of heat and a dramatic response in the body, then from the lung, we can take lung 10, the water point, sorry, the fire point, and reduce the heat in the lung. And from the Du, we take Du 14, where all the yang are meeting, and again, helping to reduce this acute heat building up situation in the body. And from the stomach 44, the water points, that will also help to reduce the heat. And again, we are doing here a Yang Ming treatment of stomach and large intestine, using large intestine 11, and both of them together reducing heat. So it's a strong reduction of heat and increasing or building back some fluids in the body and helping the body to deal with the pathogen. In the curative stage, we'll use lung 7, which is the Lu point, which will again help to eliminate the residue of the pathogens. Du 12, which we'll discuss in a minute, a body pillar, beautiful point to build up immunity and to build up back Zhang Qi. Stomach 36, we'll talk a lot about it also later and about research. When stomach 36 was used to build up again the Zhang Qi, the correct Qi from many different aspects. And an amazing combination is stomach 36 and large intestine 10, both the San Li points to build up white blood cells and strengthen the body. So you can see how 3 different strategies, 3 different usage of acupuncture points are utilized here in order to achieve the best effect in the clinic when we are facing different situations. And obviously you can use points depending on the situation and when and on the patient. And also as the patient goes along, obviously we change our strategy. Just a word about Du 12. Du 12 is called body pillar. It's just on the line of bladder 11, which is the shoe points of the lung, and bladder 42, which also a very good point to strengthen the lung and the immunity. So all these 3 points being affecting the lung and the Qi and the Zhang Qi in the body are very important for immunity. The interesting things about especially Du 12 that has this dual action. On one hand, it clears heat from the lung. So when there is heat, it helps to clear the heat, but it also pacifies wind and tonifies the lung and Wei Qi. Acupuncture overall has this capacity to be modulating. On one hand, reducing excess, and on the other hand, building the deficiency. And that's, I think, the strength of acupuncture, especially because we live in a world that is thriving for balance. And if we have a point that allows the body to reach this balance in a better way, then definitely, especially if we look at immunity and the way the immune system works and modulate itself, it's a very effective point. So its indication will have to heat in the chest, dyspnea, so there'll be difficulty in breathing, sudden cough, etc. You can also actually use even cupping around this area to help people if they have a cough and difficulty breathing and heat in the lung. So all these points can be star points to use. It's called body pillar. So I think in its name, we are studying deeply the names as well. it kind of tells you about this Zheng Qi, about upholding strongly the body and the body's ability to fight. You know, if you have a strong back, you can easily fight a disease. So body pillar brings the body this back, this pillar and this upright situation like the Zheng Qi. It's also very good in allergies, and especially allergies when there is a stuck heat in the body and there's lingering pathogenic factors in the body. This column is also nicely linking between heaven and earth. So it's kind of helping us to stand erect. And you know, if you want to stand erect, you kind of just straighten this area of the body, opening your chest and moving up this area where this point is. And this shows like good immunity, but also good stand as a human between heaven and earth, having this pillar, which is a human pillar. I want just to bring something about the history of Chinese medicine. And Li Shizhen from the Ming Dynasty, the famous doctor who wrote the Ban Sao, which has almost 1,800 herbs in it. It's an amazing book about treating disease. At this point, there was a pandemic as well. And he was one of the first one to point out that during a plague, disease comes through the mouth and nose. In the West, was discovered maybe 200 or 300 years later. And as we know, this is the key to prevent pathogens to go in. To us, it's obvious, but it took ages in human history. And as we know, the most effective part about Western medicine is hygiene, always has been, you know. So Chinese medicine has also long history, and one of the first one to point out that the entry points of disease would be through the openings in the face. This is interesting. I mean, I find it interesting that this year started in February, is a metal year, young metal year. And as we know, lung is metal. And it's not just, it's a young metal. So there is a strong dynamic of yang. I'm not the greatest astrologist in Chinese medicine, but I find it, again, just interesting to see that in Baizi, the hexagram from this year is built from thunder and wind. So everything is about this kind of changes that are coming quickly, that are affecting the lung, that are to do with extreme situation that move extremely, you know, like the rat. It's just interesting to note on another aspect, which is some closely or some relevance to Chinese medicine. One of the prescriptions that were heavily, we get now a lot of research from China, and I do believe that by the end of this pandemic, we will be able to analyze better and understand better the role of Chinese medicine in treating acute disease. And I believe that there will be breakthroughs as far as both treating immunity and helping recovery, but also preventing deterioration of disease. That's what we are seeing now from China. So I thought I'll bring the most famous prescription. And I like it because it shows the complexity of Chinese medicine. You see, it's a huge prescription, Qing Fei Pai Du Tang, and it's made from different subscripts prescriptions. So I kind of put it in colors. Mashing Shigantan, it's the first herbs here, and then Wuling San is this herbs. So this one is more for the shortness of breath, the cold, the cough, and eliminating pathogens from the lung. And Shegan Mahutang, this is the next one, it's indicating it again more for phlegm in the lung. And Xiao Chai Hutan is more for the Xiao, kind of this Xiao Yang syndrome, the nature of not just a regular invasion to the Taiyang, but to the Xiaoyang area, and then some additional herbs to clean and remove toxins. And I think we should watch very carefully and deeply the effect of herbal medicine in helping to patients during a disease and helping them from deteriorating into severe stages. So we talked a little bit about things that are relevant to our time, and I would like to go deeper into immunity in Chinese medicine because the immune system is quite unique. It is a system. I call it its orchestrating life. When you talk about immunity, hormonal system, neurological system, they're all Western terminologies. They're not Chinese, but they're talking about a system, about something which is orchestrating, something which is making sure everything is working together. The immune system is actually the most complex one, and it really needs a lot of time to get to understand it. And it's different than local systems, like if we talk at stomach, spleen, and digestive system, and lung, respiratory, urinary. So here we are talking about local Zhang Fu kind of engagement in the processes of changing water and food into our qi. Here we are talking about an orchestrating large system that is multifaceted, that has a lot of different aspects that we need to consider when we want to understand it fully. And one of the things, we can look at it from a three-dimensional point of view, because we have the Wei Qi, actually Wei and Ying Qi, we have the Jing Qi, and actually Jing and Yuan Qi, but also the Shen Qi. Shen Qi also means our emotions and the way we feel in ourselves and in the world. And as we know, the immune system is very much closely related to the mental, to emotional, and to the inner connection to the Shen. And many times, especially with acupuncture in the clinic, if you put the right point for the person to enhance the Shen Qi, sometimes, especially for prevention, it will be the key point to strengthen their immune system. So when we study immune system, we need to study this threefold kind of situation, or threefold co-enhancing qis that are all the time interplaying in the body. And especially when we're teaching from a healthy point of view, we are looking at to enhance Wei Qi, Jing Qi, and Shen Qi on a regular basis in order to prevent disease. And when we look at causes of disease and the way they relate to the different qis, we can see that external disease, I'll put it also the heaven, earth, man model, but external pathogens more relate to Wei Qi, internal pathogens more to the Ying Qi that flows in the channels. And the lack of communication with one's Tao, the lack of being centered in oneself to Shen Qi. And they're all interrelated, and they're all part of what we will call immunity. And when we come to treatment, so to treat the Wei Qi, the lung will be the main Zhang Fu, and to eliminate pathogen, we'll use also different systems like tendomuscular meridians, divergent meridians. For Jing Qi, we'll use more the kidney, and for internal pathogenic factors, maybe also extra meridians, and for the Shen Qi, the heart. And we'll look also deeper on trauma and how it affects or weakens or disrupt the Shen Qi, and we'll look at special points to do with traumas. So this is like the complexity of Chinese medicine when we talk about immunology. And in Western immunity, we'll talk about adaptive and innate immunity. And actually my research, herbal research, was mainly in innate immunity, which is really the part of us, the first line of defense against viruses. Wei Qi is one of the strongest Qi. It's a very dynamic yang Qi. Also, when we look at the Chinese character, on both sides, we have this Xing, like Wu Xing, like in the 5 elements, like left and right foot walking. So we have some dynamic movement forward. And in the center, again, the phonetic Qi, but also like a strong movement. So, and the Ying Qi moves more in the channels. The Wei Qi actually moves between the muscles and the channels. That's why it's very good to enhance sweating when you want to kind of tonify the Wei Qi. And so you actually give different herbs and different suggestions to enhance the sweating. And with the sweating, the Wei Qi comes up. A good point that I mentioned before, bladder 42, in line with bladder 13 and GV12 that we talked about. And I think the most amazing thing about this point, that it's also good for deep exhaustion of lung. And there's been some research published in Japan that shows that actually MOX on these points can strengthen and makes the white blood cells, like they increase the count of white blood cells. So MOX on this point is a very advisable way to increase immunity on a daily basis. Since I deal a lot with compromised immune patients, I'll touch also on this topic a bit. So from a Wei Qi point of view, we want to tonify the lung, and Zhang Qi, so points that we discussed, GV12, bladder 13, lung 9, stomach 36 is a good combination. For Jing Qi, we'll go deeper to Ren Mai, CV4, and stomach 30, which is both where the Chong Mai emerge, but also it's part of the Sea of Nutrition. It's a very strong point. And for the marrow, because I'm dealing a lot of patients with bone marrow and marrow suppression, and this patient needs a different care. And I teach worldwide, especially oncology, acupuncture, among other things. So we go very deep in understanding the marrow and how we can tonify the marrow. For example, with Chomai was gallbladder 39, which is the waypoint for the gallbladder. And if you are interested in studying further, both immune system or oncology, you're always welcome to go to my website, and probably it will direct you to different places. And the last thing I would like to touch on is on some herbal formulas, which can be useful for our times, and also a little bit of our own research. And I'll do it through Renshen, ginseng, because Renshen is a very unique herb. We know the ginkgosides, we know some active ingredients in it, but we also know its different types. So Renshen, as we know, the regular Renshen tonifies Qi, but also Yuan Qi, and deeply tonifies the vitality of the body. And when we treat it to be red, like Hong Renshen or Korean ginseng, then it's more tonifying the yang. We need to be careful with people who have already too much heat in their body or high blood pressure. Xiang Shen is American ginseng. It has a very different nature. It actually tonifies the yin. And Siwu Jia is Siberian ginseng. It's not ginseng, but it has the word ginseng, so I put it here. And it's very adaptogen. It's very good also to help with stamina and to sustain situation when you need stamina. And obviously disease and a difficult disease is one of them. But also for people who are doing sport, extreme sports, etc., or just tired. So Siwu Jia or Siberian ginseng will be very kind of immunomodulating and adaptogen. But generally, Renshen is adaptogen, so we can use it in different situations. I personally like more formulas than single herbs. Chinese medicine is based on complexity, understanding complexity, and using formulas. And Yuping Feng Sano will be the most simple, but also the most beautiful formula. You know, Yupi Feng San, if you look at it, I mean, to me, some formulas are almost like the same as acupuncture prescription. They're almost like a song, you know. It's like you have this different parts of the choir playing together to create a beautiful harmony. So it has Huang Qi, which works strongly on the lung, and the Qi, and Baizhu also, which dries the dampness, but also works on Qi and spleen Qi, so you have the lung and spleen working together, and Fang Fang, which again stimulates, but also good for the beginning of wind, cold wind, heat. It's a classical prescription that can be modified. And then there is two formulas that we have been studying, this one for now almost 20 years, and this one I think for above 10 years. And this one we just recently got the approval for publication. And the last study took almost 5 years and almost 1 year to finally approve a publication in a good journal. So it's a kind of long distance running you need if you do research and you want to publish in a good paper. But that's what it takes. That's what it needs. So and I'm happy to be on this path. I think there's no shortcuts in research, and definitely if you want to achieve something meaningful. And what we have been studying here, we are looking at white blood cells. So when you have the white blood count, when you go and you have your white blood count in Western medicine, you will see that under the white blood cells, the leukocytes, you will have 5 types. Very interesting from Chinese point of view. We like the number 5. And in our research, we are specifically looking at the neutrophils and on the lymphocytes, and then subtypes of lymphocytes, because they are the one that are key factors in viral and bacterial infection and prevention. And the subcategory of here again we see them, but we see them divided into 2 types. the leukocytes, but the subcategories of the lymphocytes are the most interesting ones, especially the T cells, T helper cells, and the natural killer cells. So when we do study in the lab, we take the blood of patients and also volunteers. We compare both. We take from cancer patients, we take from our staff, friends, whoever is willing to donate a little bit of blood to us. Then actually it takes sometimes a month to 3 months to work on their blood with the herbs to see how the herbs are affecting it. But in our last research, we specifically look at the T helper cells, at the natural killer cells, and at the neutrophils. So we look if herbal medicine, specifically the formula that we were studying, and specifically the formula that we were studying, the way we kind of, I can say, adjusted it and concentrated it, affected it. By the way, one of the good things about research that you can play. You can change, you can modify and see which modification works the best, both in the clinic, and then you can check it later in a kind of environment of the laboratory that the conditions are the same. So you repeat it and repeat it. And so I'm very fortunate that I could do this work as well. This is how it looks in the lab. And in the lab, you kind of go through a specific assay where you take the white blood cells and you take the neutrophils. You can isolate them and from the lymphocytes, and then you can look at their, you add CD69, it's a special kind of addition you can use, and then you can look at activation. So here we look, this is like the control, how active it is, comparing to little bit of formula, comparing to more formula. So we see that the more we are increasing the formula, the more the neutrophils are active. So we see dose-dependent, time-dependent manner, which means there is something very active in it. That's how it looks on patients, and we did many patients checking out their blood. It's called ex vivo, so we take their blood to the lab, and then we are checking it outside of their body. So that's their normal neutrophil activation. And so you can see they're different on each patient. And like this patient are more cancer patients, so it's extreme, so it's lower than the norm. And then you can see once we are adding the LCS 102, when we are adding, we call it now tonics R formula, it activates dramatically, comparing to the control, their neutrophil activity. So you see this will be the norm, and you can see how much it gets more active on that patient. And this here we look at natural killer cells. The natural killers, that's like their name, they are born to kill. They're looking at bacteria, they are looking also on cells, also on cancer cells, the deformed cells, and they are killing them. That's their job in the body. And again, we are comparing here on the same patients, that's the control, that's their blood, the activation of the natural killer. And then when you are adding the LCS 102 or the tonics R, we can see it gets more active. And again, it's individualized. So in each patient, we see a different response, and that's normal. And that's normal with herbs. This is the ingredients in tonics R. So we have poria, gonoderma, and cordyceps, 3 mushrooms. And they are very research mushrooms. We are using the specific subtypes of them. And then they show significant effect on immunity. And from Chinese point of view, they also reduce dampness. They're also tonifying different aspects of Qi. And then for additional herbs, astragalus, atractylodes, lycicium, and ligustrum, which again further have shown in different research to have immunomodulation effect and increase fatigue, mental function, blood sugar level, even enhanced blood sugar level, and liver and kidney function. So this is the formula we have been using, the tonics R, LCS 102, in the research that just got accepted for publication. The other formula, LCS 101, we were more checking on cancer patients undergoing chemotherapy, and the first one, the LCS102, the tonics, was also for healthy people, and I use it now. So this formula is more for people with undergoing chemo or with suppressed immunity, or people with history of cancer or the need of cancer care. And then again, we're looking at a larger picture. So we did a randomized clinical trial. We look at the red blood leukocytes and specifically neutrophils on these patients, and then we were showing that we are actually protecting the bone marrow. Bone marrow means the Jing. So in Chinese medicine, protecting bone marrow has a deep implication in many levels. And you see people sometimes who are undergoing chemo, they like go older quite fast. So the Jing is reduced. And this one we published specifically on the immunomodulating effect. We published at Oncotarget and Therapy also quite a few years ago. This is the second formula. And again, we look at the T activation and natural killer cells activation. This is the herbs in the formula. You can always look in all the publications, so you don't need to worry about it. It's on every publication on this formula, or you can always go to my website, which is justmyname.com. So, and then you will be directed to research and to all the herbs in the formula. And we show the further effect also because we've been researching for many years in more than 7 research centers, including cooperating with Miami Children's Hospital, with researchers from MD Anderson. The last publication is actually with one of the renowned professors from Harvard Medical School. So we've been collaborating worldwide and with different researchers to produce a research that shows the multifaceted effect of a formula in Chinese medicine. And to me, that's the beauty of formulas. So in a sense, this formula to me is can be like a pioneer to other people in the West and to study formulas and their multifaceted effect. In this respect, we show the effect on the protection that they talked, a little bit about immunity that I talked, but also a lot of effect on anti-cancer effect. And we look deeper into the, this was in the lab, but we look at the mechanism of action. So we kind of have a better understanding of how a complex formula is working and what's its potential in human care. So to finish up with immunity and acupuncture points, I would like to introduce Stomach 36. This is a beautiful painting. I've been doing this project with 2 colleagues of mine, Bartosz Kamieniecki, Dr. Bartosz Kamieniecki from Poland, and Rania Yal from Israel, with amazing painter from Poland, Martina Janik, where we paint the meridian. This is the stomach meridian, and we paint the points. We kind of trying to illustrate the nature of the points. So this is stomach 36. You see the 3 different aspects of the stomach. Actually, this is the 3 avenues and sources of Yuan Qi and the triple warmer. And it's an earth point, so we're kind of looking deeper into this. We're looking into the names of the point to understand deeper the alchemy of the point. And Lee's, one of its understanding, it's cultivating a field of land like on an 8 village family kind of. So it's very much to do with self-sustainability and the ability to produce all the food you need. And San has also, like calls Heaven and Earth, talks about the 3 aspects of the origin of the Yuan Qi in the San Jiao, etc. So it has different meanings. And we know this point has many effects on the body. It harmonizes the stomach, but again, it has this kind of modulation effect because it also can resolve dampness, and it strengthens the Zhang Qi and Yuan Qi, and it helps to nourish and tonify Qi and blood and yin even. So it's a magical point, and for that reason, we have been looking at different research on immunity. I'll give a webinar, I think, tomorrow. A friend of mine will give a webinar. I'll moderate it. I mentioned him, Dr. Bartosz Kamieniecki, specifically on the research, the research and the mechanism of action of acupuncture in modulating and working on immune system. But here I want to point out there's been a summary of research with acupuncture points that has been studied both in human and animals. And as you can see, stomach 36 is one of the most researched points, both in animals. You see 25 studies, and 14 studies in human. So there's been a lot of studies on the effect on this point, and even a kind of trying to understand the mechanism of action, how tonifying this point will affect in enhancing natural killer cells in the body through the avenue of the brain and the central nervous system. I'll end up with some combination of stomach 36. So on Qi, you can combine it with lung 7, bladder 42, GV12 that I mentioned. For Yuan Qi, with Sanjiao 4, the Yuan Qi, the Yuan point of the Sanjiao or triple warmer, and CV4, and for Zheng Qi with kidney 27, the last point on the kidney, and lung 9. So this will be also interesting combination for Qi, Yuan, and Zheng Qi. So I want to leave you with different potential clinical abilities. I'm going to give a series of webinars, actually starting from, I think the dates are different, so like 2 weeks from now. It's called To Serve and Protect, a bit kind of known thing. And so you can go look into it at the TCM.AC if you want more information. If you want to understand better immunity, so immunity is made out of 3 things. It's made out of the Shen Qi, the body's Qi, and also the Jing Qi and what you bring to the world in order to keep yourself in great vitality. And lastly, to say, when you're choosing a point that resonates with the patient's inner heart and heaven, this is where healings come from. Then you touch the real depth of the person. And I will leave you with the quoting one of my mentors, Father Lar, by returning to the classical root of Chinese medicine, we can make a truly significant contribution to the medicine of the future. So thank you very much. Thank you for watching, and wishing you the best of health and healing. And this is also, I want to thank the American Acupuncture Council for hosting this show. And I will end this slide and say a few other words of welcoming the next show. So thank you very much and all the best. So next week on this show, there is Pony Chang, so don't miss him. And I hope you enjoyed it. And again, I want to thank the American Acupuncture Council for hosting it and allowing us all to enjoy this. Thank you very much, and be safe and healthy.